Hello, lovely people. It is Thursday. What is today? The 19th? 19th. Thursday, May 19th. And we're going to be doing some 3D modeling today. We're picking up where we left off on the last stream, which was working on Waddlebottom, the Lord of all Ducks. Yeah, I think this is coming along. I did a little bit of tweaking offline. We changed the view here, and we'll change the lighting just a little bit. Fairly overly bright. Let me tone that down a little bit. Basically, we had finished molding a lot of the feathers on one side of the figure, and so what I did was I deleted some on the other side. Boy, let me switch this model over a bit. And so I duplicated them largely, but I left some intact because I wanted to carve them so they'd be a little bit different on both sides, so they wouldn't be symmetrical necessarily. Because why would I want that? So I'm going to break these apart and make a few little tweaks to a few of these. Not a lot, but I'm hoping we can get this thing done today. Hey, Alex, nice to see you. So I use the lasso tool. I'm just going to cut some stuff out. Ooh, that turned out bad. Too much. So we're going to be just basically carving some feathers up today. I think that was the last feather that I needed to tweak anything on this cape. I also, in the last stream, I removed some of the back feathers, the under feathers, like the underbelly of the duck. Hey, Max, nice to see you, NPC. I'm sorry we didn't get to the questions last night. We had so many. Just the conversation was bouncing back and forth on the Pencil to Pencil show, and I had one of yours queued up, and it was like double Dutch. I'm just trying to time myself to get in there to kind of like between, you know, before someone riffs on something else, so to get it in there. Do ducks have knees? I don't think so. These are just slapped in there, and then copied. In the end, I'm going to probably have them straight-limbed. I don't know. I might put a little bit of a bend to them. I'm not trying to make it biologically accurate to a mallard, because also the colors of Waddlebottom, he's like a male mallard, and they don't quack. So males don't quack. They kind of do more of a. So if you ever hear a quacking duck, it's a female. So anyway, I'm not trying to make it biologically, ornithologically accurate. Whatever's going to be funnier, I hope. I kind of like the idea of the notion is that the knee is sort of the, you know, in the drumstick, kind of in the thigh, and then it just sort of, I don't know. So like basically the thigh will connect to a knee. Alex says, my dad has a bunch of what's called mute ducks, and they just kind of hiss. I like that. They're speaking parcel tongue. Waddlebottom is a weapon, NPC. Does Waddlebottom have a weapon? Max Powers Comics writes on YouTube, and no, Waddlebottom's a living weapon. So I don't really have a prop for him. The only thing that could include would be the map that he hands to our hero during the story. So I think LJ has been pushing for me to include that, and I kind of like that idea. The main thing for me, as I mentioned before, is so once I get the basic model right, I'm going to start moving it and bending it and things like that. Now, there's no spine system in this, like if I were rigging it like it was animated. But I am going to try to twist the torso, the top part a little bit. Once I mold all those pieces together, I want to twist the shoulders and then rotate the head up to be more like that Heisman Trophy kind of look over he's got. So he'll be looking up. So I'm kind of glad the head's a separate piece. But I mostly have to rotate the body in a way to really anchor it to the tree stump so that it will print and it won't snap in half. My big worry is that there's going to be a section of the figure where it could just bend. Since his legs aren't really Alex says give him a gun. Well, maybe there'll be a variant figure that has him loaded with weapons. Alright, so I gotta merge all these together. There's a lot of feathers. So this file was getting out of hand in terms of size, and that's why it was crashing as part of the episode we were watching before. I do worry that some of those pieces are kind of like, oops, sort of stray elements. Like if you have two pieces in a model and you just slightly cut through it, they'll technically be separate pieces, to the point where one can just be like a point, not even a triangle, not even a shape, but just a loose point. And there are tools for cleaning up the 3D models before they get printed, and they'll catch all those things so they don't choke. But they can fill up the file and make things more difficult. Like suddenly there are a lot more objects, or I'm grabbing something and it doesn't seem to exist. So anyway, I'm going to merge all these together with a simple merge. I'm not quite ready to formally join them all together because I think I have to do them in sections to keep the I don't know, the detail. Okay. So I'm going to turn off my reference for a moment here. If folks missed it, the Pencil to Pencil, what they call a podcast, it's more of a video podcast, is on YouTube and on Facebook. It's at youtube.com/pencil to pencil. And there was a new episode last night where hosts Mike Manley, Jamar Nicholas, and myself spoke with Mark Schultz of Cadillacs and Dinosaurs, Xenozoic Tales. He also wrote, Batman and Superman and Batman vs. Aliens and Predator. We never got a chance to even talk about that. And Thomas Yates, who did Tarzan and stuff. The two of them are working on the Prince Valiant comic, and we talked with him, and it was really a great conversation. They have the third host has been Brett Blevins, who you saw join us during the recording last night, and Brett's had to step away for a while, and so they asked me to join the crew. So, what else am I going to be doing? So, a good chance to talk shop with people and bring a perspective from the webcomic side of things, kind of the techie side of things too. Yeah, that seemed like more. Well, no, maybe I'm wrong. I thought, is that more? Were there more objects than there are feathers? And I'm like, oh no, there's a lot of feathers. I can't believe how many feathers I've had to sculpt. Okay, I feel good about the face. I feel good about the body. The legs are just placeholders. I think we're ready to save this. Then I'm going to save a new version, and in that version we're going to start molding the figure and see if we can turn this into an action pose. Oh yeah. Max, Siobhan, Prince Valiant is one of the oldest adventure comic strips. There was a writer-artist named Hal Foster who started with the Tarzan comic strip, and it was a Sunday only, I believe. Maybe it was dailies, but became incredibly popular. He's a beautiful draftsman. His work is enormous. It really is like whatever size your dining room table is, probably. It's that huge, or at least the size of your art table. His paper was the size of the art tables most people work on now. And amazing work. One of my favorite quotes of Hal Foster was, they said, how long does it take you to do a page? And he said, oh, that's easy, because he knew the answer, 54 hours. So he does the Tarzan comic, and it's very, very popular. And he decides he wants to do his own thing, and so he creates Prince Valiant. It's this 5th century, semi-Arthurian hero, and it is swords and sorcery. It's an adventure story. His details are his rendering is beautiful. Look up Hal Foster Prince Valiant. Gorgeous, gorgeous work. And so much. His work was so influential that once you become familiar with Hal Foster's work and you start looking at the early years of it, and then you start looking at Marvel Comics from the 60s, and you go, oh, that's a Hal Foster figure, that's a Hal Foster figure. They were just tracing him. Yeah, amazing work. Also really interesting, and we never got a chance to talk about it last night, was that Prince Valiant doesn't have word balloons. It was a drawing, and then there was text, and sometimes the text would float within the panel in some place, or it would be below the panel as if it were a children's book, kind of like an illustrated story. So it has a very narrative quality. It's not like modern comics, which almost have taken the narration completely out of the equation altogether, and it's just dialogue, and everything's very, first-person, noirish, pure dialogue. So his stuff is just classic and beautiful. And the story is really good, surprisingly good. I originally liked it for the artwork, thinking, this story, why am I read this story? And the story is really good. Hey, LJ. Never got the notification. I'm sorry about that. Alex, can we talk about how this man's hair is simply on freaking point? What's that? Are you talking about Waddlebottom? How his hair looks good? His feathers look fantastic? I couldn't agree more. Okay, so we've saved this as a new model. Let's mush some stuff together and see if we can do this without breaking it. Ugh, no, wait. I'm going to delete this and go back to version 6. Because there was still some stuff I have to do. I have to cut more notches out of some of the feathers. Sorry. Let's jump back a bit. In the wing, there is a row or two of feathers, and I have to cut some notches out of those first. Okay. So I did some of these. I just have to do this top row. And again, when this wing gets mushed together into one object, I'm going to flatten it a bit so this leading edge won't be quite so thick. I want it to be strong because I want the model to hold up, but I'm going to have to mush it a bit. Okay. So we go to the gizmo tool, and we're going to separate them. And when you separate things in this program, it automatically puts them to the bottom of the list, which is great. Very helpful. You will have to do that row as well. All right. Good. We'll get those done, and then we'll move on to molding our character around. Jamar! Nice to see you. We were just talking about you. I hope you're doing well. Talking about Max was asking, NPC is on the channel as well, and on the YouTube, and was asking about what's even the significance of Prince Valiant, and why do we care so much about it? And I was trying to go into a little bit of that history, and the art really is amongst the most influential. There's Jack Kirby. But even Jack Kirby's work, I think if you look at early stuff of his, you'll see a Hal Foster influence before he finds his own very bold voice. And then what I didn't find out, we were talking with Mark and Thomas briefly before we started broadcasting, and it turns out that studio that they were with Al Williamson, fantastic illustrator, he was like the baby in if you know of EC Comics, and that's another MPC, that's someone else, that's another era you should be familiar with, is EC Comics. Amazing horror and science fiction comics. Among its most long-lasting legacies was the Mad Magazine kind of grew out of that. But when they talk about the Comics Code Authority clamping down on stuff, it really hit EC the hardest. But in that EC world, one of the youngest people in the crew was Al Williamson, who ended up influencing a ton of other artists. But it would turn out that some of the summers I spent as a kid my folks were in different states. I would spend like a summer with my dad, and it was in the town in Pennsylvania where that studio was. So apparently when I was a kid, a stone's throw away was this studio full of amazing artists, and I was just probably watching, cartoons on TV instead of, or, I was doodling by myself when I could have been, learning from masters. The internet came too late. So we're going to notch out these feathers. A lot of them were duplicates of each other, and I didn't take these notches out of them so that they would have some variety when I finally put them together, so they didn't all look like the exact same feather. And that the two wings will be symmetrical, I don't care about that. I can't care about that. I don't feel like that's cheating, because I'm going to bend the wings so they're going to have hopefully have a very different life than one another. How many layers in the file now? Have you merged anything yet? Removed part of the body? I haven't merged the pieces yet. We're almost there. I've done some simple merges, but there's more to do. And so if you want to catch next week's episode, I don't think we've announced the guest yet. I think we're on the cusp. Join me over on Discord, and I'll let you know when the latest I'll let you know when we announce the guest. But you can also follow the channel on YouTube at youtube.com/pencil2pencil. That's pencil, T-O pencil. And become a subscriber. I think there's 701 people subscribing to it currently. Take that, CNN Plus. Take that, Quibi. And Jamar on YouTube says, they talk very fondly of Al. He was the guru. And Jamar says, we need 1 million. I think, once we get to 1 million, we'll stop. We're not going to let anyone subscribe after that. That's after that, the velvet ropes come up, and you have to be wearing much nicer shoes. So all of you in flip-flops, sign up now while you can. Yeah, I'm positive some of these shapes I've got here, like that one has 48,000 vertices. This feather. So that's why this thing, among the reasons why it was crashing, was this file was 0.5 gigabyte. So I'm going to downsample all this stuff. And again, these are going to be very tiny. I don't know why I'm doing all this. But someday I'll get therapy and I'll find out. And the program is very generous. It's a very good program. So I recommend it highly. I'm using Nomad Sculpt, and it's a $15 program. I recommend everybody who's a cartoonist give it a shot, because like me, you get a piece of clay and you start molding features, and you're trying to make a skull or trying to make a face. And when you open up this program and you turn on and symmetry is turned on, so as soon as you start building one cheekbone, the other cheekbone starts getting built, and you're like, oh wow, that's like stuff every sculptor, every person working with actual matter and not pixels would kill for that function. And it's built in. And again, I'm a hack. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm learning as everyone who's been following me on these streams knows. I'm just learning this as I go. And it's easy peasy. And I heard from the manufacturer who's going to be making my D&D minis, and progress is going well. I've asked them to send along some photographs so that we can see progress of how, see the process of how these things get made, because I think that'd be super interesting. And James says, I appreciate the pencil to pencil announcements on Discord. And I'll keep doing that, James, for sure. Oh yeah, Max Power's comic is on WEBTOON. It has got, I think it's approaching 100, it's rapidly approaching 100 subscribers. Yeah, Siobhan's work is, needs more eyeballs on it. Okay, I think I've gotten all the... I think I've got all the feathers in that section. So let's regroup those, and then we'll try to save it. Ridge feathers. Oh, missing one. There we go. Simple merge. I'm also gonna, well, I'm gonna save it now. Then I'm gonna, there's a thing called decimate, where it will attempt to kind of globally reduce the number of pixels and facets and vertices. So like this section that we just worked on has 1.2 million vertices, and I'm going to hit decimate, and that should cut that in half and hopefully save a lot of save the file size. And we're down to 630,000. Okay, good. So as long as I keep doing that along the way, it'll hopefully keep this from reaching half a gigabyte again. And I'm going to turn on one little window. Make sure that anybody who subscribes... Unfortunately, the system I'm using doesn't really show alerts when a new person follows on YouTube. I wish it would. But currently it just shows it for Twitch activities. Things like... oh, so Bane Nascent followed. Let's... you're going to have a little alert. Thank you, Bane Nascent. Okay. I'm going to separate that. But I hope everyone's working on some beautiful artwork. Join the Discord. You can check out Max Power's Comics has got a preview of their call to action project, which is that the call to action is a contest that WEBTOONs is currently running. Technically, they've announced it. It technically starts June 1st and runs through the end of July, and they're trying to encourage creators to do action stories, kind of something different than what you usually expect from WEBTOONs. And so, Siobhan White has got their comic on. Oh, heavens! I had symmetry on. It was cutting that feather too much. Some of these I might have to cut. Well, maybe not. I was thinking I might have to cut them some more once I start moving the wing around. But that seems good for now. Where are we? Bottom feathers, row 6. Simple merge. Decimate. Save. Fantastic, James. Yeah, so the Jamar's book, Leon the Extraordinary, comes out 10/4. Could be easy to remember. 10/4, Leon the Extraordinary from Scholastic Graphics. Pre-order it now. Everyone, pre-order it. They're not officially a sponsor of this stream yet. But yeah, it's exciting. There was an early edition of Leon out there. I managed to get a copy of one, and it's fantastic. It might have a blurb from me on it. That's me touching greatness. And the Eisner Award nominations came out yesterday. I was snubbed. No. They nominated something really interesting. There is a Webtoons, that Batman series on Webtoons got an Eisner nomination. So I didn't warm to it immediately, but I'm gonna give it another. Look. But also Lore Olympus got nominated, which I would think would be the one to beat. So every once in a while you see a nominee and you're like, oh wow, that's gonna win. I feel that way about Lore Olympus. Oh, unless the Batman thing is, you know, it's weird because the nomination process is, for the Eisners and for the Ringos largely, is a jurying, and so there are experts who are brought on, usually 5 or 6 people who are in the profession, either as creators or retailers, librarians, journalists. They're brought in to read everything, or at least read everything submitted, which does help a lot. That cuts it down. And then they vote on, ooh, that feather needs to come out a bit. Just when I think I'm out, they pull me back in. Foot? Yes, look at that. So much better. Oh wait, let me rotate it. No, I'm going to cheat and just use the drag tool and bring it out. So they vote on... So that part is really kind of I would think is the more aesthetic portion of the process, where they actually have to read everything. And I got to be an Eisner judge back in 2005. Clearly all the more qualified people were unavailable. And we read everything. You know, I at least read like 5 pages into everything. I mean, if there's 10 typos on page 1, you're like, you know, maybe this one's not going to win. But the next part of the voting, it really is popularity. Like, people are going to get a ballot and they're going to be familiar with 2 or 3 categories, and they're going to get to some categories they don't know, and they'll read it and they'll go, oh, I know Charles Schultz's name, and they'll vote for that. Spoken like a guy who's been nominated and hasn't won. This is not sour grapes. I mean, this is just a practicality of the voting process. Besides watching simultaneously on Twitch and YouTube, I'm drawing monsters for a client's coloring book, says James. That's fantastic. Oh yeah, Jamar, very first year of the Ringos, was a juror. That's awesome. We've talked about Michael Ringo before, and those awards are named after him, and he was a hero to a lot of us, and a friend to a lot of us. He was a wonderful guy. I only knew him casually. I met him a handful of times and through online forums. I wouldn't ask him to help me move furniture, that sort of thing. I think Jamar and he were tight. Yeah, there was a fantastic guy, gone way too young. But inspiration for all of us to do our own work. Because there was a ton of projects of his that I would love to have seen happen, but they never happened. So that's kind of... there's a lot of beautiful work that he did, and we get to see it, and that's great. But there was a lot more that we missed out on because we lost him too soon. I'm going to move this feather back. I know you're all saying, Steve, move that feather. It's in the way. I couldn't agree with you more. And in the end, like you can see a little bit of the feather underneath it peeking out. That's not going to matter because it's just going to look like it's part of the feather. I don't think... Yes, well, I say that it's not going to matter and then I mitigate it. I just don't think it's going to affect anything. Because as soon as it's all one color plastic, it's not going to stand out. And if you're new to this channel, my name is Steve. I'm a web cartoonist and have been for a very long time. If you're catching a replay on the YouTubes or on the Twitches, you can read my webcomic for free. It's called The Middle Age. It has been nominated for many awards. I used to say it lost awards, but I haven't lost one of them yet. Because I think you have to win it to lose it. Like, you have to actually get it in your hand. I'm now treating it only like exclusively the physical object. I've only ever won one comic award. And I know exactly where it is. So I haven't lost any of them. But it's been nominated for a number of awards. It's a silly fantasy webcomic. Episode 281 is on my digital drawing table right now and should go live on Patreon tomorrow. And then will be available to the rest of the planet and beyond on Monday. I'm super happy with how that episode's coming along. And Mike Waringo is an artist everybody should know. Mike's art was joyful. I gotta hide this platform. It keeps getting in my way. Boop, boop, boop. We're gonna get rid of all the legs and the trees and the flowers and stuff. We'll come back to those. Mike had this cool style, which was kind of like a hybrid of American comics and manga. People have said that a lot. I think that can sound like disparaging or something, maybe, but I don't think so. I think it was awesome. Because a lot of comics, American comics specifically, they were kind of looking stale, I think. And Mike's did not. Not at all. He was creating his own new style, and it was spectacular. I'm moving some of these feathers back just to give a little more depth. I don't want to create a cavity in there, but like there are some cavities going on, but I'm going to try to fill them in a little bit here if I can. I just don't want to make these difficult for people to print and mold later on. Okay, I think that row is done. Almost there, almost there. I'm gonna save because I'm a coward and drink coffee. Hey, JRD. Nice to see you. Yeah, as Jamar on YouTube is saying that Mike Waringo's run on Fantastic Four with Mark Waid was great. Absolutely. I don't remember being that excited about the Fantastic Four since, like, you know, John Byrne had worked on it. His design of you can kind of judge Marvel Comics artists by how well they draw the Thing, and Waringo could do it. It was great. How's the book going, JRD? He was, I believe he's in the final stages of putting his book together. Okay, I want to separate that last row. Oops. Part of me thought that maybe I would move the two wings into position and then I would cut out these feathers differently for each wing. And then I was like, no. End of story. That was the end of the adventure there. I was like, no, 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 no. That's madness. It's bad enough I'm cutting these out separately. Oh, symmetry. Symmetry was on for some of these objects. And again, symmetry gets a little messed up once you start saving them together and moving them together. They're kind of central axis moves. And so when you do something that's mirrored, suddenly it's cutting in multiple places. Like, I bet if I cut this feather, you'll see something weird happen. Wait. Oh, maybe I haven't messed that one up. That one still has symmetry on, but it's not behaving poorly. Neither's that one. They must not have had to move so much. But if you ever see it behaving badly, it's probably because you still have symmetry on. Oops. And all this music is by Kevin MacLeod of Incompetech. Thank you, Kevin. Okay. I think those feathers are done. I think the wing is done. Feathers row 3 merged together. We'll decimate it to reduce its file size a bit from 477,000 vertices down to 238, and we will save. Whew. Now I can merge stuff together. We can start turning this into an action pose. Oh, that's great, JRD. The book is, J. Robert Deans on YouTube says that their book they're working on for Heroes Con, which is in June. It's easy to remember when Heroes Con is. It's in June, which is 4 months ahead of when Leon the Extraordinary comes out. So just remember when Leon the Extraordinary comes out and then work backwards about 3 months and 2 weeks. JRD says the book is done. I'm building the email for my followers to tell them about it and announce pre-order starting Monday. Already bought the URL. Fantastic. Used one of the lines from your introduction, Steve, as the cover blurb. Oh, that's great. I wrote the introduction for JRD's book. I was honored to do it. I've known J. Robert Deans for quite a long time. And big fan. Big fan of the man, the family, and this book. Okay, we're gonna save as number 7. And this is a collection of some of JRD's older work. Brace yourself if you're like I think I said, like, you need to have your laminated nerd card for admission. Oh, and that's me. That's who says that. Anytime, JRD. Okay. Okay, we've saved this as a new version. I'm going to try to start merging pieces together and see if I don't break it. And then we're going to flip this wing over, which I know is going to be a problem because we're going to like suddenly add 40% to the file size. These feathers I'm most concerned about. I do want to keep them, and maybe that. I think I want to merge those 3 sections together. Maybe that one too. So I'm going to move them to the bottom of the list, just so I have them all in one place. That one, that one, that. Oh, wait, no, not that one. So this is really kind of experimental what I'm trying to do here. I don't know if it'll work. I'm hoping it will. But the feathers on the edge, if you followed this process, we did this whole thing on the stream. Those feathers at the end, They were all molded out of a sphere. You can see that curve to the feathers was because there was a giant sphere underneath it, and I kind of pulled these pieces out of the sphere, one feather at a time, and then moved them to give them that dimensionality. And then kind of molded them, sculpted them, cut them, as if it were a paper craft. So I'm going to try to merge all those pieces together and hope it doesn't break. So we will keep edges sharp, sure. We're going to voxel merge, but we're going to go to a nice high size. Anything larger than this will not print. I won't be able to export it. I won't be able to give it to a vendor to turn it into anything. So we're going to try to voxel merge them, which there's a simple merge, which keeps the individual pieces separate, and then there's voxel merge, which turns them all into a single object. The individual pieces are no more, they're fused. So let's say 500, even 500-ish. Edges sharp, remesh. It's a single object now. Now we'll go to decimate. And these pieces are all fused together. My computer didn't break. All right. One down, a few more to go. So I'm just going to move them to the bottom of the list here. Feathers row 2. Feathers row 3. Now, underneath this row of feathers, there's another row. What happened was, when I was putting these together, I was looking at lots of photographs of ducks, and the ducks have kind of one pattern on the top side and a different pattern underneath of the wing, and I wanted to make the two patterns representative of what actual duck wings look like. You know, it's not feather for feather a duck, but it's close. And so it's like if someone looked at it at a glance at the size of a mini, they're like, okay, that's a duck wing. And so there's a row of top feathers and a row of bottom feathers, and there's this kind of underneath. I didn't build the skeleton of the wing, but that left a cavity in there, which again could pose a problem for model makers. And so there's a second row. I duplicated this row of feathers into that there. And that was duplicated and slid back to help fill. It looks like peanut butter cookies. These Nutter Butters are what's holding the wing together and going to create additional stability and hopefully fewer holes in the design. And Jamar, I'm definitely going to copy and paste the wing to the other side, but I'm simplifying it down before I do that. My fear is that if I leave it in its original raw unmerged form, every one of those wings is thousands of, each one of those wings is, I don't know, 100K, 200K file size. Maybe each one might be a megabyte. And so if I can merge them together and turn 100 wings into 20 megabyte, then I can then flip it and I'm not blowing up my computer. So, but again, I was really concerned about the solidity of the wing, because I ran into that problem with with my Sir Quimp figure when they were printing the larger one. Hey, Marcus, nice to see you. So, Quimp, like the wing, started with a basic shape. Who was kind of his shape was kind of this sphere that I built everything around. Hard to see if it's out of focus, but sorry about that. Come on, get in focus. So he's built around a sphere. Get my giant noggin out of the way. Maybe it'll focus on the figure. Son of a gun. It's vexing me. There's a giant sphere that I started from, and I built the tabard out of that, the shirt out of that, the chainmail out of that. And then, as I was working on this thing, I pulled I was like, oh, I don't need that center sphere anymore. And so I got rid of it. And it turns out there were gaps in the sphere. Like, there was gaps in the chainmail under one arm. And so if I opened that model up on the computer and zoomed in, I could see suddenly there was a cavity. Like, oh no. So if you put a lantern in there, light would have shown out through the mesh of the chainmail, basically. And then when they printed it at the large size, suddenly things started to sag because it didn't have the support it needed. So I had to go back in and make sure that that sphere is there. And so similarly, I want to make sure this wing is built solidly so it doesn't break. And so I would say long story short, but that ship has sailed. It was a way long story. Sorry about that. Okay, let's merge. We got this section, and then we want to merge everything else. And where are you? Feathers row 4. Okay. So, and if it crashes when I do this, that's just a beautiful excuse to reload and drink more coffee. Turn the resolution up high to 500. Keep sharp edges. Voxel merge and hold my breath. Fantastic. Fantastic. I'm going to zoom in a little bit to make sure it hasn't turned to awfulness. You can see how it's falling apart in places. You see that structure? It's trying to merge it, and it's run out of data. It's saying, "Oh, you want me to build this with so few Legos? We're going to make some shortcuts." And that's what it looks like when it's forced to make those choices. We see little bits of those here as well. Like, you can see that kind of webbing that appears. Hey, Eric. Nice to see you. I am super hungry for, like, chocolate-covered graham crackers when I work on this thing. I'm like tempted to leave the pieces separate or to have the resolution higher, but I'm like, it's going to have to get... The resolution's going to have to get shrunk down anyway, so I might as well deal with it now. Okay, so to try to fix some of those issues... Let me start with the one I had before. I'm going to use the smooth tool and turn symmetry off, a big brush, low intensity. I'm going to look for places where I see that kind of weird webbing happening. The smooth tool tends to eradicate those. So it's not too bad. Again, this is super small. I just mostly don't want there to be... Like, you can see the lack of data there mushed those feathers together. Man, do I want to separate those out further before I mold them? No, I don't. I'm going to leave it the way it is. I could belabor this indefinitely. As if I haven't already. So this, someone was asking, is this the longest process? This is definitely the longest one I've streamed. A lot of work on the figures, I would be like, I'm just going to stay up watching TV till 3 in the morning, and I was working on a model and doing a lot of the stuff offline. Like the pattern on Sir Quimp's armor, things like that. But this one... Oh, so I did undo the merge, okay. Maybe I will simplify it a little bit. Let's just merge those two together. Again, I'm going to have to shrink them. I'm going to have to merge them down later on anyway. But dag nabbit. That is a mess right there. smooth tool is going to be, again, these are so small. Why am I fretting? Because I'm made of fret. Double dag nabbit. I did not merge our chocolatey filling in with the other. Let's merge them together. I definitely want that part that's hidden to be part of this. I don't want to get to the end of this process and find out that that thing is still by itself and gigantic. I could just take a giant. Oh, come on. Ugh. Okay, I'm gonna undo. Okay, the lesson here is that if I'm going to throw out a lot of resolution and it's going to create that webbing, I don't want to remesh it again because it's going to kind of turn that... The program's going to think I want to keep that meshing, and when it remeshes the messed up mesh, it will sort of calcify it. Or petrify it. So I want to get back to the point where those breaks go away, and I'm just going to merge the larger pieces together and deal with it. Starting with our filling. Okay. Actually, no, let's select that. I appreciate you all being here through this crazy process. I like to think this is going to be the most complicated model I do. I pray this is the most complicated model I do. Voxel merge, pushing it up to 600. Hey Zan, nice to see you. Charity. Man, that is meshed up. Eric, I've done a little bit of work on this particular model while offline. What I did two things. I deleted some of the feathers on the right of the camera, and then so like these. I'm use the where's the painting tool? That one. Choose a color, and so I did some of these. I worked on those, adding the little nooks and cuts and additional spines on them, and then mirrored them to this side of the bird. That way, it saved me some time because I could have gone on the other side and then cut each one and drawn it. It's like at this point, no one's going to be able to see both sides of the figure at the same time, so I don't mind that part. Where I do care is when they're facing each other or next to each other. That would bother me. Again, I just don't want it to look like, hey, he just took the same feather and duplicated it a million times. Okay, so we've merged these things together. Let's save. And I'm going to go with the smooth tool and fix any of that stray webbing we see anywhere. But I hope so I did little things like that. Oh, and the other thing I did was very lightly I tried that kind of stamp I had created that was a feather. I lightly put that onto the neck of the duck and then softened it to see if that texture looked good, and I kind of liked it. Again, that will be invisible, but in the end, when the figure's done, the idea is that downy underbelly, big old feathers on the top sides, very chunky, and then the head was going to have a slight texture to it, but the collar of the mallard will be smooth, and I think that will create the impression of a white collar, like a mallard. Without, since this is all going to be monochromatic, I've got to indicate value through texture, and so I want to have a incredibly smooth collar for the neck with a hard line. Like I'm going to dig a line into it, so it will be demarcated. So slight texture to what would be the teal head of the duck, a completely smooth, no texture collar, and then immediately after the collar, we move into the very textured torso. And I think that's going to give us the distinction, even without color. And I did learn, I was saying this before, so male ducks don't quack. So outside of this fantasy setting. So in the Middle Age, male ducks quack, but if you ever hear a duck quacking, it's a female duck. How are we doing on time? 5 o'clock. 0 drop frames. Everything's going great. I don't hear my cats breaking stuff in the other room. So I'm going through with the smooth tool right now and looking for any of that stray webbing that meshing sometimes produces, or any kind of weird patterns. I should turn off symmetry. Yeah, there's a cavity there I don't like, but hopefully it'll get merged with the figure and it won't matter. There's also this. What the heck is that? That is a hidden... Oh, that's our... Okay, this is fun. We haven't seen this piece in a while. This has been buried under the figure for a while now. That's our chicken wing. At one point that was built and things were wrapped around it to kind of create... That was kind of the form that we were wrapping pieces around. That has to get meshed with the thing we just meshed. Which means I have to fix all these little webbing bits before I do that. Otherwise I'm undoing it all. Not the craziest thing I would have done today. Where are you? You're hidden in there somewhere. Dagnabbit. I'm going to do it. We're undoing 1,000 levels of undo, and we're going to enjoy every single one of them. So we're undoing some of the smoothing I've done. I'm going to break those pieces apart, and I'm going to merge that wing into the feathers, because I need that to be one single piece. Again, I don't want to have a hollow. Okay, good. Good, good, good. We move that wing to the bottom of the list. That was it. That was the last undo of the day. He lies. He lies lyingly. Okay. Oh, look at that. That will all be merged. And it's going to work great. Unless it crashes. Okay, we're going to go 600 again. I know, madness, you say. Captain, I'm giving it all she's got. I'm going to drink coffee. Jamar, thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. Thank you again for the for last night and inviting me into the world of pencil to pencil. I appreciate it. It's fantastic. Oh, and if you want to catch Jamar solo on Pencil to Pencil, if you queue up, if you subscribe and ring the bell for Pencil to Pencil on YouTube on Thursday nights at 8 o'clock East Coast time, I believe. 8 or 9 o'clock. Jamar, help me out. It's just a chat, just Jamar. You get a chance to come to group, as it is 9 p.m. Eastern time. Thank you. Yeah, it's a good time. It's a good time. It's a good chat, and it's across various platforms. We've got to get them on Twitch. All right, I'll see you later. Okay. So we've merged this thing together. It hasn't broken. We're going to save and drink coffee. So I see we got a few people on the YouTubes, a few people on the Twitches. If you don't know who I am, I'm Steve Conley, and my webcomic, The Middle Age, is free to read at middleagecomic.com. I'm currently working on 3D... Hello, Peter XYZ. Nice to see you. Thanks for the follow. I'm a web cartoonist, and my webcomic, The Middle Age, is free to read online, and this is a character from that story called Waddlebottom, the Lord of all Ducks, and we're currently creating him in Nomad Sculpt on an iPad Pro. We're about, I don't know, 20 hours into this sculpt, It got very complicated. We threw out a lot of the start of it because I started to try to take a single object and carve feathers into it. And when I didn't like how that was coming out, I started building each feather individually and just kind of laying them and rotating them and building one on top of another of a different shape, and trying to make it look more like a duck wing. And when that looked good, I ended up having to do that across the entire back of the character. And then I did a different approach using the stamp tool for the belly, which I want to be a different texture, kind of softer. Again, this is going to be a mini. And they will be made available. This is an oversized mini, a resin print that was made. They're going to be closer to that size. And there will be a Kickstarter later this month for the first 4 figures, which you see in the bottom right corner there. It's going to be Sir Quimp, the baby dragon Jarn. Who else is next? It's going to have Bob, I believe, or the wizard Melvin. Oh, that's Sir Quimp, our hero. That's the biggest figure of the bunch, and it weighs quite a bit because he's a lot of plastic in that. The wizard Melvin, the Intoximancer, and then Bob the Inscrutable. Okay. Now let's merge some of these. So right now the model's been built and I'm kind of merging some of these rows of feathers together to reduce the file size a bit. And that will allow me to duplicate the wing so I'm creating one wing, I'll duplicate it, and then I'm going to move them into the position I want them to be. Okay. So we got this section, and we got that section. And the only thing left should be these two. So those don't need quite as many, the resolution to be quite so high. We're going to go 400, keep edges sharp, and voxel merge. Great. Okay. Now I've got to zoom in on this and clean up any of those weird artifacts that popped up along the way. Turning symmetry off with the smooth tool. There should be fewer ones with this because we've merged it's such a small shape. Compared to some of these other sections that we were merging together. Still a few of them came up. Again, it's just this weird webbing which appears, especially where I cut into the shapes. And all this work is being done on an iPad with the Nomad Sculpt application. And I'm just kind of reaching into some of these gaps in the shapes to kind of clean up that webbing that appears. Some of this will be fixed by Mesh Mixer when I bring it onto my desktop for cleanup. Mesh Mixer was a great program. It's currently still supported for PC. It's no longer supported on the Mac. The company that made it, I think, is trying to sell a different product now. Yeah, I don't like that webbing there. Hopefully it won't mess everything up. We're just going through and cleaning up some of that stuff. Very small detail stuff, but... Hey, Veritera. Nice to see you. Are you the Steve Conley? I'm a Steve Conley. I'm amongst the Steve Conleys. There's a professional footballer named Donald Stephen Conley who goes by Stephen Conley. I think he has the Wikipedia page. So, but because he's a professional football player, I think he could beat me up. So, actually, because he's a human being, I think he could beat me up. So I'll let him have it. And by let him, I mean, yes, sir. You may have it. Please don't take my lunch money. Wait. How are these separate again? Did I undo? Did I totally undo? I am my own nemesis. Twould seem. Well, it does explain why they weren't as corrupted as I thought they would be, given that they'd been merged. Well, then I can merge all of that together. Now if it crashes, I wouldn't blame it. It worked. Oh, thanks, Veritera. Veritera on Twitch says, wow, those feathers are looking so clean. Now I want to mess them up. They're going to get mushed quite a bit before I'm done. JRD on YouTube says, do I need to build you a wiki page, Steve? I don't know how they'll get made. I imagine there's a meeting. It's a lot like what was the group that put together the King James Bible? The council. I imagine there's a vetting process and due diligence and all that stuff has to be done in order to make the Wikipedia thing happen. Great deal of research. Dan Rather's brought in. The ghost of Edward R. Murrow. I presumed Alex Trebek just wrote all that stuff from memory. Now with him gone, I don't know how it gets updated. So I'm going through and cleaning out this webbing. This webbing happens when you basically reduce the resolution of an object, and it ends up trying desperately. Turn solo on, so I'm just working with that. It tries desperately to connect these things together, and it does so with these little webs, and the smooth tool will help eliminate those. Usually it's where two pieces are coming together, and it just creates these little webs in between those two very relatively close objects. And some of this won't be seen at all because it's underneath other things. Like a lot of this stuff here is all tucked into the body of the figure, and so we're not going to see it all. And again, Mesh Mixer, the desktop program I use to prep the files for printing, will take care of anything that's egregious. What it will do is if something is too messed up, it actually will just delete the thing. It will just say, okay, let's remove that from the model because I can't make it work. So there's still that hollow in there. A hollow is okay in the model as long as it's airtight. So, fingers crossed. I guess I could try to put something in there now. The thing is, that would also free up a lot of detail for the outside shape, because that resolution I gave it is to define the shape whether you can see it or not. So it's using a lot of that detail, a lot of that information to define the interior shape, which is pointless. And it's increasing, so it's increasing the file size for no real value. I don't know how I can fill that area. I don't know how I can fill it easily. Oh, maybe I do. I could create a cylinder or a shape of some kind and put it in there and then knock out the wing. And that will create a shape of the hollow, basically using this shape we have here as a mold. And then all I have to do is expand that object a little bit and then fill it into that space and merge it into that space. No, Verter, I still have that. I still have the note, the Ragnarok background music here. I have that. I have that note here. I haven't done it yet though. And JRD is saying no. Apparently, it doesn't rely on the ghost of Alex Trebek, but he could have one up and running in a couple hours. Well beyond my skill set. I can make hundreds of little wings, but when it comes to Wikipedia, I'm at a loss. Okay, let's see if I can really do what I'm thinking here. Oof, there's a big old mess there. We could fix this. Can't we? I just want to get rid of that hollow. Oof, it will create a ton of objects. Because if I push that out, every little opening is going to... Let's stick with what we got and hope the people who will make a 3D model of this will love it. Or let's hope... What can I do? I wish I could put a light in there so that I would see if it's light tight at least. I think I've filled all the gaps. I'm just concerned that there's one hole that I'm not seeing and the thing is going to be... I mean, I really did try. Oh, like right there. Look at that space. Curses. It's not airtight. Bah. Humbug, I say. But let's try this. This might actually be crafty. I'm going to use the mask select tool. We talked about this before, that when you're drawing on one of these things with one of these tools, that it is laser-like. It draws right through the object. So if I draw, let me use the lasso tool. If I draw right there, we're going to see that circle. That circle will appear on the other side of the shape. But that means it will also appear on the inside of the shape. So, and then if we extrude, it will extrude from all those different points. Let's use that to our advantage. Let's, using the selection mask tool, let's just draw on the top side. Now that mark will be both sides. Now let's extract that thickness. We'll go large with like 0.5. See what I'm getting at? It's going to extrude from the top. So we're going to do that Rudy Giuliani, from the top to the bottom, to the left, to the sides, whatever that nonsense was. So if it extrudes in all these directions, I can get rid of the top and bottom and leave the filling. if it's for, if I separate that into multiple, oh god. Oh, look at you. You are a nightmare of too many pieces. Belay that order. All right, all right, all right. Let's use the select mask tool and just create a simple one right here that will draw through. Now let's turn off front facing vertex only and unmask. So if I do this here, it should unmask the top side but leave the others alone. Let's do that with the bottom. I think I'm actually learning this program. Okay, so now the interior of it should still be selected. Or not? Oh, weird. It's not treating it like it's a front-facing vertex. Oh, it's not just the outside. It's just concerned with one direction. Oh. Clear that. Okay. Maybe there's not that. I thought that would work. Okay, let's try a simple shape. Maybe this won't work the way I'm hoping it'll work. I thought that was a good idea. It's a shame. Let's try to... I'm going to reduce this shell thickness a bit and extract. Yeah. Huh, it merged through. Bring the size down a little bit more. Yeah, I want it to be selected, but not through the bottom side of it. Maybe there's no way to avoid that. It's possible that because the... Yeah, and it's not... And this still isn't even filling it in all the way. Okay. Heavens, how do I... There's got to be a way to fill this thing. Let's turn up slow. Let's do a cylinder. Validate it. This was the first thought, but that it was going to make it too complicated. Okay, so that's going through the shape. Oh, that's going through the wing. So we'll duplicate that wing. select it with the cylinder, hide the top feathers, and then we'll voxel merge it with a modest resolution. So that should have cut the shape of the feathers out of the thing. Veritera says, you could lower the top feathers to hide the whole... Yeah, I was thinking about that, like bringing them all together, but I've kind of merged them into one shape at the moment. I'm trying not to duplicate it again and again and again for fear of creating these all other nooks. But let's go solo. So those are definitely separate pieces now, it looks like. We're going to separate. Those are still connected in some fashion. How interesting. Okay, we'll just cut that. Turning off symmetry with the lasso tool. So this is the only part of that cylinder I'm interested in. The rest of them I can... That was less of a mess than I thought that would be. Simple merge, delete. So that cylinder, I basically... Let me see if I can show you how that is done. I will color that green. And so I had that green cylinder, and I basically knocked out the other parts of the wing. So it shouldn't show through anywhere on the top side, but it should fill that space. So if I put the other feathers in, we could see that green in there. That might have done the trick. Hot dog. How about that? That was my first thought I had. I don't know why I didn't stick with it. Okay, so I'm going to take these together. I'm going to undo because I want to go back to the point where I've changed the color till it's basic color. And I'm going to voxel merge these together. Again, the interior now should be so simple that should give us extra detail to put around the outside. Wish I'd done that at the start, but live and learn. JRD, you always make him a featherless bird. So one of the comics I was doing before was called Bloop. And I was drawing every leaf on the tree. As I've said before, it was like, the idea was that, I don't know if people would like my artwork, but at least I would think that if I put a lot of effort in, they would at least appreciate the effort. So maybe I'm not a good artist, but I'm a hard-working one. After drawing so many leaves on trees, I was kind of like rooting for the villain to deforest the place. And the thing is, I had to merge these feathers together in order to create the knockout shape to make that happen. I would love for that. Okay, so that's what I could do. If I went back in time, undoing, before these feathers were merged, then I duplicate those feathers, create our mold to cut out the cylinder, then that way it would have more detail. I would never have to go to fix things because the detail would already be there. Dag nabbit. It can be done. No, it doesn't matter. This is too small. All this detail is too small. No one on earth is going to see this stuff. And yet, I'm thinking about it. Because what I can do is I can take that, I can unmerge that green cylinder, that cylinder we have, export that as an STL file, open up the previous version of Waddlebottom, import that, and then suddenly it will be in position exactly where it needs to be. And then when I merge the feathers together, they'll merge together in a less lossy way, and there'll be less fixing to do, and all that detail I've put in there would remain. So if someone ever wants to make a 12-foot tall version of this sculpture, all that detail will be there, and it won't suddenly look like Minecraft. What is going on there? Let me hope that that gets fixed somehow. That is an ugly mark right there on the wing. I don't know where that came from. That might have been a mirrored bit of the... Well, he's got a little bit of a weird hook there on his one feather. Okay. Why am I fussing? Why am I fussing? But now we know how to do it. We can cut out, we can always merge pieces together, use them as a stamp, a three-dimensional stamp to extract something. Okay. I'm hoping that's airtight now. It's gotta be. So now our feather... Those are all the feathers in two objects. Sadomasochist got it. As Zan says, oh no, he's overheating. Fair point. Fair point. Fair point. I'm just learning. This would have occurred to me 10 models from now. I'd be like, oh no, I know how to solve these problems. It's fine. It's fine. Oh no, he's overheating. That's fantastic. NPC. Okay. So that the texture of his belly is probably a little bit more than I would... Oh. Thanksgiving Day Waddlebottom. The texture is probably more than I would like. If I were starting over again, I would probably make those feathers on the belly a little bit smaller. Those individual... That pattern would probably be a tighter pattern. I'm trying to just remind myself that this will be an incredibly tiny mini. Who knows what we'll see. I do wish these feathers on the cape were a bit more pronounced, but in fact, I'm going to try to do this. Move that down. Move that down. So just those two. We'll take them. Save. What I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate those 2 rows of feathers, and I'm going to see about extruding them in all directions just a little bit to thicken them up. I had to do with this with the claws of the baby dragons because they were so small that they were kind of falling apart. Okay. I'm going to take those very high resolution. Let's go 600. Keep sharp edges, and we're going to voxel merge. This is going to merge all those feathers together. In theory. It's thinking. Okay, I remeshed them. The reason why it looks the way it does is because I have those duplicate feathers underneath it, and they're occupying the exact same position in the universe. And every place where those two things were meshed together, where it had to do a slight tweak to the mesh, that's where you started to see the other bit of the model through. We'll wake up at dawn thinking about the feathers. Oh, absolutely. What's this next sculpt after the Lord of Ducks? It will either be Kevin the Illegible, who's a knight from the webcomic The Middle Age. It kind of has a... I'm either going to do the cow head version of Kevin or the cracked skull version of Kevin. And then, or it's going to be a larger dragon. It'll be Phosphene in dragon form. I don't know if there's even if I know a vendor who could actually print that thing. But that would be fun. Okay, one other thing I want to do is, while we're here, let's decimate these things. So 939,000 vertices, we'll cut that in half. And we'll do that for the outside if I haven't. Oh, I already done that. So that cut that in half. We'll save, and that's going to save a ton of, that'll bring the file size down considerably. That's excellent. Okay, so now we have this. We're going to go to the selection mask. We're going to invert it because nothing is selected on it. Like if I select this thing and then I invert that selection, basically it basically changes that which is selected. So if everything's unselected as it is in its default state, I hit invert, suddenly the whole thing is selected. Now we're going to, with a very low shell thickness, 0.1, we're going to extract and see what that does. A little hideous. Okay. Sure. I bring that down. Look at it from the front. Hit the gizmo tool. We're going to scale it slightly. Now, those feathers that you see selected is the merged object we selected previously. So I'm going to, using the selection mask tool, clear that selection. Using the gizmo tool, enlarging it slightly. I'm just wondering if it'd be better on the model if the row of feathers is thicker on the sides, more pronounced. So that's what I was kind of going for here. Things that would be a lot harder to fix later on. I kind of think I'm lightly overthinking this. It would certainly fix any holes that might happen to be in this thing. But we have a solution for that now. The thing I learned 10 seconds ago and wasn't applying to this lesson, we're now going to apply it. Okay. Back feathers, top of cape. Look at us learning. And by us, I mean this dumb person learning so slowly. So we have our original top of cape and we have our original back feathers. Now we're going to voxel merge these together. Get a fairly decent resolution. Keeping sharp edges, voxel merge. Now this will look crude, but it's also because the thing we saw was that not only is it attempting to maintain the detail of the top side of the feathers. Is it still thinking? No, it's not. Not only is it trying to maintain the detail on the top side here, and it's failing, you can see these little crevices. It's also trying to maintain the detail on the underside. There's less detail here, but it's still trying to maintain it, and you can see where it's failing. And, well, you can see holes in the design too. So we want to fix those holes. What's going on there? We've got a missing feather. That's where Bard the Guardsman's arrow is going to go and kill Waddlebottom. I gotta fix that. Oh, it's where these two... And what is going on with these undecorated feathers? What kind of slapdash inferior work is this? Alright, let's fix this. Can I fix this? Yes, I can. Okay. How we doing? Oh wow. And Max Powers is talking about what model to do next after this one, and saying, "What about the giant talking tree that heals Quimp?" That would be great. I'd love to do that. I'm terrified of creating feathers. Leaves. Okay, so let's mirror left to right. Mirror left to right. Mirror left to right. Yep, we need to do that one. And that's also, again, why we keep everything on the center axis of the universe, because that allows us to mirror these things until we need to start shifting them around. So shifting them around is the last thing we do. We build everything as best we can, and then we start moving it. Okay, and we're back in business. Voot. Voot. Again, thanks to James, who uncovered the idea that I could just drag up this list of items and suddenly they would be selected. Okay, we're going to simple merge them. Simple merging, again, is just like keeping them so I can separate them later if I want to, if I need to. And we can see holes in the shapes, right? Like, oh wow, there's all those gaps. It's all sitting on top of another form, which should fill things out fairly well, but I am worried about gaps in the design. So, back to where we were. We're going to duplicate the top of the cape. Oh no, we know it's not airtight. Well, we can make it airtight. So I'm just trying to bring these in so I can merge them all together. And or do I not need to do that? I can merge them into the body, and that will fix the problem, I think. And I gotta get rid of some of these other pieces that I have floating around this model. I'm just going to merge these together. Merge these all together. Voxel merge 600. Nice and big. Keep sharp edges. So what I did was I duplicated both rows of feathers, the kind of area around the collar and then the longer part along the back, and I shrunk them down. And I'm merging those shrunken pieces to the body. So hopefully this is going to be an airtight thing, which I can tell by separating it. Well, we're auto-saving, but I'm going to try to separate it, and that will kind of tell me if there are any... see, there are loose pieces here. Yeah, all sorts of little loose pieces. That's the main part we want to keep. Everything else here is space garbage. Again, big thanks to Jimmy James. Just dragging to select all these things. So much space garbage. I do love this though. I wonder if after I voxel merge things, if I should just hit the separate button and see if it falls apart. And these might be all those like little spines that appear. There's a lot of them. Gasp. Good Lord, choke. In those EC comics I was talking about, one of the exclamations is someone saying good Lord, and then they want to kind of have the choking sound like oh, and it just says good Lord, choke. So I think about that a lot. This is a lot of space garbage. Oh my goodness. I was encouraging people, everyone should really play with this program, have a lot of fun with it. And then I do something like this, going like, oh. Again, this is not real work. This doesn't count as real work. Holy Hannah. Look at all these duck droppings. This is one of those things that makes me think I might have made this a little more complicated than it needed to be. I could do this all day. They are. Those are all the stray spines. So after I merge something and it has all those spines, if I separate them, I can delete them. It's still going to have weird gaps and scars and stuff. Huh. Fascinating. Interesting. So really interesting. Okay, okay. Okay, I don't know what that is, where that ended up, why that's there. What am I looking at? And I think that's an issue, because I think what I did was I ended up merging the larger feathers instead of the smaller feathers. But that's okay. That's okay. That's fine. But let's do that. Let's fill in this gap, because I want to do that. So we're going to voxel merge nice and large again. And we're going to do the same exact thing. We're going to separate it, and all that space junk we're going to delete. I mean, it's cumbersome, but it's super. It cleans up the whole thing. Because all these things aren't part of the model. They're all extra bits. But I definitely should have a sip of coffee. Oh, that's great. So Peter XYZ subscribed on YouTube. Apparently the system is connected to YouTube now. So if you're on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button. Ring that notification bell to be notified next time I update or go live. And if you're on Twitch, please hit the follow button. There will be a very loud metal sound because I haven't updated that yet. But I appreciate you being here. If you're watching this as a replay, thank you. So this is a fascinating chore, but I'm excited about this. It is all that stuff I was merging and trying to soften. The idea that I can fix things this way is kind of exciting to me. It's a much cleaner way of doing it. Did I rotate this thing again? Sweet. All right, this is the part I was interested in doing. Top of cape and the back feathers. We're going to merge these together. Again, we're going to have the same little issue where high resolution voxel merge, keeping sharp edges if I can. I want to soften the feathers in the neck. So there's kind of chunky there, but I'm going to soften them. I'm going to take a smooth brush along the top there. Separate. Have our main thing. Again, super cumbersome to deal with this, but very effective way of cleaning everything up. Really should start up the top, shouldn't I? We're going to take a break shortly, and we're going to get to see the art gallery at when I take a quick 5-minute break, stretch my legs, and have a snack, and I'll be right back. And we'll go on till about 8 o'clock East Coast time. I stream every Tuesday and Thursday, unless something happens, and there's occasionally auto-saving. Occasionally I will have a bonus stream, so do be sure to hit the follow button if you're on Twitch, or the subscribe button and the bell if you're on the YouTubes. So right now what I'm doing is I'm selecting all those stray pieces that were created when we merge them together. By merging these objects together, voxel merging them, it simplifies them. It really, well, it brings down the file size tremendously, and the computer's forced to approximate things. Like it can't give it an infinite resolution, so it has to kind of bring everything down, and in so doing it has to take some shortcuts, and those shortcuts they can result in these artifacts, little jagged bits, and so those I can remove with that simple move right there. Tell you what, also let's 1.4 million vertices. Let's decimate this and bring it down. And now let's smooth these feathers into the... I just wanted this top row of feathers to kind of be merged sort of gracefully into that top bit. I can see taking the stamp tool and adding a little extra to create that collar effect. We could do that at the end, though. Veritera on Twitch says, I think you'd be impressed by ZBrush. The interface is quite complicated. And there's our dramatic music. Delete that top cape. Let's go to view mode. I'm gonna complete body. We don't need, we've got one. I had backups that I created along the way. Again, there's a whole other version of this model somewhere. Like this version of the head of the figure. Oh, wow. That has a selection mask on it, and I think that's why it was, instead of moving completely. What am I looking at? I'm loving this. For some reason, it's locked in place. Does it have a selection mask? I haven't seen this particular weirdness before. Oh, it's two different objects that have been merged together, and so they're... Okay, I apologize for the nightmares. Let's delete that. All right. So look at that. After all that, we're kind of reducing our list down. These things have been merged together. Body has been merged together. Wing 1. Let's see this. Wingtip 1. Wing base 1. Well, let's do that. Let's take this bigger step right before I go on a little break here. Wingtip 2. Wing base 2. mirror. Let's just, we've duplicated it. We don't have to mirror it. So we're just going to flip the object. First thing we do is going to try to reset the world center. And then when we flip it, hopefully it will flip to the other side. Look at that. It's almost like we know what we're doing. Reset the world center. Alright, you lovely people. Let's save this where it is. We're getting there. I would love to fight a giant duck to this music. Says Eric. Hey, DEG. Nice to see you. There are not enough fight and battle scenes involving giant ducks or duck monsters. Eric says, the only one I can think of is in Superman, the animated series where he fights Toyman's giant duck robot armed with machine guns and missiles. Fantastic. All right, let's change our lighting. Oh, let's do this first. I know I keep saying I'm going to take my little break here. Where's my nice... This is my approximate, model fill color. And I will see everybody in 5 minutes. I'm going to take a little break. The art gallery that's seen here has got work from acclaimed Pixar Disney artist Marty Bowman. It's got work from Jeremy Vinar of Perils Below. It's got, who else in there? Jeff D., amazing classic Dungeons and Dragons artist. If you had those red or blue box editions, his art's in there too. So I will be right back and we're going to keep working on this model. You've been here for 30 minutes, Steve. Finally, know. I've been deep in the feathers of this duck, DEG. Thank you for being here. I'll be right back. And we're back. Credits to Kevin MacLeod and his amazing music. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Let me see. Studio mode. I noticed there was no timer in that countdown. I want to make sure that's visible next time. Studio mode. I hope everyone's having a beautiful Thursday. DEG again, I'm sorry I did not notice you were at the party. I was refilling the pretzels and the Chex Mix. I didn't see you there, but welcome. All right, so we're gonna undo. This should just change the color instead of that. If I paint the thing and then work on it with this particular matte cap, it will. It gets harder to see, harder to use. Okay, so we've simplified our duck down. Not our duck down. We've simplified down the duck. And, all right. My brain. Let's get our reference image back up. We've saved. Tell you what, in a fit of cowardice, I shall save another version. We'll save version 8, which is bordering on our record for the number of variations we've had in one of these files. Let's move the mushrooms, the platform. Oh, I want to try this. The wing. Ooh. We're gonna delete our wait a minute, let's go this way. That should be base. We'll delete that. Delete that. That should be wing base 1. We're gonna do this thing. We're gonna do the separating thing. And see, and knowing that this is going to clear up a lot of the garbage that's in the process of voxel merging. Again, if there's a reason I shouldn't be doing this, I would love to know it. But it seems like it's the most logical thing. All that stray garbage. I don't think any of this stuff is adding to the model in any way and making it look better. I think this is all just artifacts that I've been using. I've been using basically the smooth tool to kind of mush these into the main shape. And I'd much rather, you know, with certainty delete them. Because I would imagine this is going to choke Mesh Mix or whatever other program I was going to try to bring this figure into. Look at all that extra garbage. Way better. Oh, no, don't want to rotate you. Sweet. Okay. So now that I've cleaned them up, now I'm going to duplicate them and flip them over to the other side. And this is good because you can see that red plane, that's where it would flip normally. And so by resetting it to the world center, you'll see that move to the middle of the duck, to the world center, the center of the universe. And so when I flip it, it's going to flip it from that plane. Boop. I'm going to reset to the world center and then flip. And Eric is mentioning the... so how about those Eisner nominations, Steve? Sucks that you make it this year. Yeah, I mean... charity on YouTube. Flip it good. That is, of course, a reference to the theme music from Fast and the Furious 3. It's hard to say that it sucks. I mean, I like the nominations. I do think that I'm able to exploit them in the way a lot of other cartoonists don't. I found this the other day. When I got my first Eisner nomination a few years back, I immediately sent a press release and to the local newspaper, and this was their cover story. You know, creator of Sir Quimp gets industry honor. You know, I'm still old school enough to go, oh, I'll write a press release and I will send along a press release that has some lovely graphics in it. When do they ever get to put a cartoon on the front page of their paper, or a picture of you know, some guy in a cartoonist sitting at an art table? They love that stuff. And if you give them an excuse to have that, so I do hope that the people who get nominated take advantage of it, and if they win, that they really take advantage of it as a way to expand their audience. My hot take on the Eisner nominations this year: Lore Olympus would feel like a shoe-in, unless, to me, a complete surprise was the Batman webtoon series, Batman Family, or whatever it is. But the Batman Family webtoon series got nominated. I'm really surprised at that. But I think when it comes time to the general voting, people tend to vote for the names they know, and they know the name Batman. So I don't know if that's going to edge out Lore Olympus. In terms of status, in terms of the year 2022, the one that should probably get it is Lore Olympus. I mean, this is really their year. They're almost like Saga at the point where it's going to be, oh, they should be a perennial favorite. But it's also only 5 things can get nominated out of hundreds of thousands of webcomics. I certainly wouldn't say that mine is one of the 5 best. How do you say that? You know? It's just that what are the ones that tickle the judges? And this year, the judges had a particular taste, and yeah, good for the nominees. I mean, good for David Peterson. He got nominated. I was happy to see that. A lot of people, I was really happy to see them get nominated. Okay, let's move some stuff around. These legs were just placeholders, so I'm going to not worry about them at the moment. But I do want to thin our hero's body up. Let's start. We're on version 8 right now, right? Okay. So I'm going to duplicate that body. But I'm excited for the people who won. I hope they're able to take advantage of it. I think I'm going to merge the tail feathers into the body now. Which means we're going to have to do our normal shenanigans here of a high mesh, keep sharp edges, and I want to do that separating thing, so there's going to be a ton of garbage to mess up. This could have been your year with no crisis zone sweep. Or I don't know. It would be... It's hard to say such things. It's a miracle that anybody even noticed my comic at all. I'm super excited. I mean, the wonderful, your podcast, people were discovering it because of the nomination. That's all I could ever hope for. I know my comic is a weird thing. It's not drawn in the American style. It's not really drawn in a European style. It's certainly not a manga. It's just off in its own little corner. I hope it's sort of like like Bone or Amulet or something like that. Not that it's necessarily for kids, but it can find an audience in spite of its style. I mean, Bone I think is beautifully drawn, but if you had said, okay, it's 1994, we're going to launch a hit comic and it's going to be drawn in a style similar to Walt Kelly, I'd be like, really? Almost like the opposite of what Image was doing. I kind of feel like I'm kind of doing the opposite of what most people in comics are doing. And Eric says, the Batman Family comic is actually pretty good. See, there you go. That's great. That wouldn't be upset if Batman won. Even Dave said, I think I skipped something there. Alex has got some adventure going on there. I hope you're okay. Okay, so I'm going to attempt to... I've got the body, the wings. I'm not going to try to merge them all. Don't worry, computer. I wouldn't do that to you. Let's start with the body. I think I'm going to merge... I think I'm just going to narrow it a bit. Dave Sim was in response to "I'm happy for all the nominees." Oh, I didn't see that Dave Sim got nominated. I imagine it's for his Alex Raymond. Yeah, it's interesting. I think there's a... To me, I think it's interesting if he got nominated. I didn't really dig through all the nominees. I mostly focused on webcomic and digital comic because I really thought Scott Snyder, with all the stuff from Comixology coming out last year, would have swept. To me, that was the most surprising thing. But I think Dave Sim might be a testament to the influence of Cartoonist Kayfabe, that YouTube channel. I think that they were talking about that project a lot. And I imagine that had something to do with it. Because I think they avoided pretty much any... I don't think they dealt with any of the controversy surrounding Dave Sim. For people who don't know, Dave Sim is the creator of the comic Cerebus. And toward the end of the series... he got political, not in a modern sense of the word. He got very stridently militant in a way that was like, it was biting the hand which fed him. So I mean, regardless of the politics of a person, sure, people can be, all over the map, but he was like writing stuff against the Smith, Jeff Smith and Vijay Smith. It was really weird, like a breakdown of something. I mean, please forgive me. I don't know what I'm a cartoonist. I'm not making a medical diagnosis. It was just, it was following up on doing 300 episodes of a monumentally, until that moment, largely monumental comic. A 300 issues of a book largely done by one person. Yes, backgrounds were done by Gerhard. But it fairly unheard of. I mean, still a gigantic task. Yeah. It wasn't that, Jeff. It was it wasn't our good friend Mr. Bezos. Space Cowboy Bezos. The prime mover. But yeah, it was really weird that he's all. Steve, you need to start publishing your publisher then to get nominated. Pushing my publisher to get. Well, I'm able to. Yeah, I was bracing myself. It wasn't like normally when the awards come out, you start bashing your publisher to get nominated. My publisher's terrible. I mean, I'm awful. I'm the worst. But when the awards come out, I kind of get a little bit disheartened. I'm not gonna lie. I like, it's like my ego gets built in. Gets like, I just hope for the attention. I hope for the affirmation. Please, awards, tell me I don't suck. I know it's terrible, but I'm not gonna lie. It in a very silly way, it matters to me. And it shouldn't, or I'm supposed to say it's not supposed to, right? I'm supposed to be like, oh no, it's cool, I don't care. But if you're happy to be nominated, you have to have the opposite feeling. I think not the opposite necessarily, because it's not a 1-to-1. But I think you'd be disappointed not to be. There's a little. Steve was distracted by a bug. That's what you tune into here on this Twitch channel. See an old man distracted by insects. Oh, heavens. I need to make sure I move the wings when I do the rest of them. So, but again, I've been so lucky to get any nominations at all. I'm not in any position to ever complain. I mean, heck, you people are here. I think that's lovely. That's fantastic. I'm a very fortunate person. And I don't begrudge anybody else, because again, it's just a taste of the judges, and you hope that they shine some light on some work that people haven't otherwise. I'm going to be giving that Batman story a chance, and I wouldn't have otherwise. So if it helps people find comics and helps especially independent creators, I don't think Batman needs a leg up nowadays. If it helps people find independent projects. I know the first time I got a nomination, I got a few new Patreon supporters, and man, I can't complain about that at all. Okay, let me try to rotate this wing in a way that I don't hate. I will have to merge this wing together. Currently it's two separate pieces, and you know what that means. I have to merge them together and then separate them and clean up all that junk. So I was an Eisner judge in 2005. I've certainly mentioned this before. And I wrote the proposal that got webcomics added to the ballot. Up until that time, 2000, 2001, 2002 through 4, every time the nominations came out, webcomics people were like, we've been snubbed yet again, blah, 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 blah. And so I get to be a judge in 2005, and I asked the administrator, Jackie Estrada, well, how come webcomics aren't considered? And she said, no one's written the proposal. That basically they needed a structure for it. Ooh, Steve is so progressive. As a young person, DEG. Okay, so we're gonna merge this together. Oof. Do not break. Please don't break, Mr. Feather, Mr. Wing. So, I write the proposal that adds it to the category, and And Eric says, the thing that gets me is why there's a difference between webcomic and digital comic. Yeah. An unfortunate side effect, I think, of the nature of the Eisners. Okay, so let's separate this out, and then we talk about that. Wing base 1. Hit the solo button. We're going to have a lot of garbage here. So, originally when I wrote the proposal, the most popular comic strips, the most popular webcomics were essentially comic strips. If you think of PvP and Penny Arcade, and even my comic, Astounding Space Thrills, was very comic strippy. Because again, computer monitors were 800, 900 pixels across. Comics were like very tiny. They were very horizontal because computer monitors were all horizontal. Nobody was looking at anything on their phones. And so comics online were either... they were all originally either trying to be comic strips, they were trying to get themselves on the newspapers, or they wanted to do comic books. In either way, most of the comics that were online looked like strips or pages. And so the Eisners don't recognize comic strips. The Rubens and the National Cartoonist Society were comic strips, and the Eisners were comic books. And so it was, I think it was part of that legacy that made comic strips not eligible. When I wrote the proposal, I was basically told that comic strips aren't things we look at. This isn't a comic strip award. This isn't a general cartooning award. If you do cartooning for like gift for greeting cards, that's what the NCS and the Rubens are for. So I had to write a proposal that covered that. At the same time, they had all these stringent rules for what makes a book eligible for the Eisners, such as a street date. You know, like it has to be published during the calendar year for eligibility. And they go by Diamond. How do you do that with a webcomic? And so you have to kind of codify all these things, kind of like writing law, saying, here is the rules, here are the exceptions. How many, like when there's a limited series award, there are rules for, you know, how many episodes have to come out during the eligibility period. Because there's been situations where a comic that's an ongoing series, the series gets cut short, not because it was intended to, but because it gets canceled for low sales or some such, and suddenly it's eligible for limited series. It's weirdness because we're judging art, and what is a short story, what is a full comic, what is a graphic novel, all these things end up having to get defined. And so initially, comic strips weren't eligible for an Eisner. That was fixed that very next year. And then Scott Kurtz won with PvP. But the first year, they just couldn't go for it. So I had to create a proposal, and then it got voted on, and it was added to the category. So I'm very excited to have that little footnote in history. Then the digital comic came later on, because at some point, webcomics are just webcomics. You know, they're read online, and then suddenly DC or Marvel decided, let's just take one of our comics, let's not print it, let's just upload a PDF. And I think it's the acknowledgement that reading something online and reading something offline are different experiences. Because is a comic strip different than a comic book? And it's kind of like the serialized nature of the thing. And I think a webcomic, sort of by its nature, has a serialized component to it. It doesn't have to. I guess there could be a one-shot WEBTOON episode where the whole thing is told one and done. But even WEBTOONs with their longer installments is still episodic. And I think, and yes, individual comic books can have historically been episodic, but a lot of them also were standalone. So it's a weird thing, and I think the digital comic thing, for me, I appreciated it in as much as Comixology simply wasn't steamrolling the webcomics category. And again, to me, more awards are better, even if it makes the award ceremony more miserable, because they just all run so long. Well, except the Ringos, which are nice and tight right now. I'm very happy about that. But I think more awards are better because I like to see more people get acknowledged for good work or for hard work. He says ramblingly. I don't read webcomics, I only read digital comics, says Eric. Though that is true. I think there are people who read Comixology, but who say I don't read webcomics, right? I bet you there are people who read Comixology, but if I say, hey, do you read webcomics? They would probably say, no, I don't. But then you'd have to be splitting hairs about at what point does... Hey, raid! Remtoto, hello! Thank you so much. 7 new people. Remtoto, let me know what you've been working on, what you've been playing. DEG is criticizing. I'm new to this Twitch thing, so I need to don't have a ton of commands. Hey, I was trying to say that because I can't pronounce that. Akazero3D and Remtoto, thank you for the follow and the raid. I'm currently working on this model of Waddlebottom, the Lord of all Ducks. He's a character from my webcomic, The Middle Age, which is totally free to read online. Here's a sketch. He kind of looks like a Heisman Trophy. That wasn't intentional. But I've been working on this for the last 4 or 5 streams. Oh, I have to delete that other wing, don't I? Well, I'll have to merge it together at some point. But he is the Lord of all Ducks. This is Waddlebottom. And this will be a D&D mini. Those ones you see in the bottom right corner are some of the other ones I've sculpted on this channel. And they're going to be part of a Kickstarter campaign. This is kind of a supersized one. Kazero 3D says, we were doing some sculpting. Feathers are a nightmare. I'm not doing birds for a long time. I agree. This was a huge mistake. Thank you, Remtoto. That's awesome. And so they're going to be a set of 4 D&D minis. You can see them in the bottom right. There's Sir Quimp, a baby dragon Jarn. You can see him there right now. Then there is I think the wizard Melwyn is going to be seen next. Oh no, that's Sir Quimp. That's the one. That was the second model I ever made, and I'm working in Nomad Sculpt on an iPad. And that's the wizard Melvin, who is an intoximancer. And yeah, I'm waiting on photos, and then the models. I think I'm going to get them next week from the mini manufacturer. Fingers crossed that they work out. Well, I can't thank you enough. Thank you so much, Remtoto. I'll definitely give you a follow. Got to check out what you're working on. I can do that right now. I could do that, right? And if you have a link to what you were working on, I'd love to see it. Boom. Follow. To what you were working on? Oh, I'd love to. And oh, your work is at least 7,000% sexier than mine. All right. So I know when you're looking at a duck that those feathers that kind of form a cape along the back are kind of the wings, you know, but we're faking it. But I'm going to have to merge these 2 pieces of the wing of this wing together. So we got to jump through that hoop where I merge them, separate them, and clean up the garbage. Yeah, there's a lot of Waddlebottom, Lord of all Ducks, gets lots of fan letters. Weirdly, from women in prison. It's lots of prison letters for. I think they're just hungry. All right, so I'm merging those 2 bits of the wing together, and now we separate them, and I got to clean up the mess. Okay, so that's all merged together. I'm going to turn off solo just so at least we've got something to look at while I'm clicking on all these things. So in Nomad Sculpt, when you merge a complex object together, it can create a lot of artifacts. And what I had been doing was using the smooth tool to kind of blend them into the object. I didn't realize what I could do is simply hit the separate button and it will break all those unattached pieces apart. I wish there was a simple way to select all, or select all and then deselect a few other pieces. But I found this to be an infinitely better way of deleting the garbage than trying to smooth it into the shape of the thing. I think this is all the stuff that Mesh Mixer would delete when I run through when I use the analysis function. So I've been doing 3D modeling for coming on 6 months, so I'm fairly new to it. I used to do simple 3D stuff way, way back in the day, like in the 90s. All right, simple merge. We'll hit solo so we can see all the garbage. Yeah, all that debris. Goodbye. And we're back. Okay, so those two things are together. This wing I was going to have go up. How are we going to do that? Be careful. Yeah, yeah, I did check out WEBTOON. I did check out the channel. It raises many questions. I'm like, I'm so confused. What is this I'm feeling? What is love? Okay. So he's got shoulders, sort of, kinda. All right, I'm gonna definitely start bending this figure now. Let me decimate this to try to save down. Oh no, that's not bad. I was afraid it was much larger than that. Let me do that with the other side as well. Yeah, I was really concerned that the file size was going to be way higher than 1,000,000. I'm just going to start bending the wings all over the place. You're a ZBrush guy. Can split all that broken stuff in one fell swoop when you merge. Oh, but it's looking great. Thank you so much. JRD over on YouTube says some of that debris looks like it would make great all right, so I think I'm just going to start trying to drag these pieces around. I've been meaning to learn ZBrush. I think I'm less terrified of it nowadays than I would have been. I tried Blender, or at least I downloaded and looked at Blender, and my god, that interface was so intimidating. I talked about trying to smush this leading edge of the wing. Did I save a copy? Tell you what, I'm going to undo quite a bit of this. No, I got the backup of the other wing. If I need to, I can flip the other one. Use the move tool. I definitely want to pull out some of these feathers a little bit, or maybe even I might add another one or two and just tuck them in. It would be fun to have one or two feathers just loose in the environment. As I'm always drawing those in the comic, like to show where he's going, or if he punches somebody, there's always a feather that comes off. James says ZBrush Core Mini is free. I should do that. I should try that. And Akaziru 3D says, yeah, I can't get around Blender's UI either. I mean, I love that it's free. I'm a cheapskate, and especially if I don't know if it's something like so much of ZBrush and those other programs were just so expensive. I'm like, I want to just try it and see if I'm going to be any good at it. Like I said about this program, Nomad, I'm like, if there was a monthly fee, I never would have downloaded it. I'm just a cheapskate. Man, I'm liking that. I'm going to tell you what, this wing, I'm going to archive that one, duplicate this one, and flip it over. And use that as my main. Okay, world center. Dang nabbit. Oh no, I've rotated the duck. So it's still flip object. Oops. I forgot we're moving past the point where everything is centered. I'm on left. But I'm super excited about getting minis made as a D&D nerd. I mean, all the ones I had when I was a kid were all metal. I'm not going to get metal minis made. Although I did find a vendor who could do that. I got to talk to somebody. But now that I feel more comfortable with it, this Nomad's great. It's definitely missing some stuff. Like, I wish I can import an SVG file or a, any kind of vector file and extrude it and add some bevels. The simplest thing. But like, there's a sword that you see that Sir Quimp, the knight character, has, and I ended up creating that in Photoshop and importing it as an OBJ or an STL file or something like that. Just because this program doesn't have that kind of functionality. And bevels would have seemed to be like a, we can't release this thing until it has the ability to do a beveled object. That would have been my thought, but it has so many other lovely features. I can't complain. He says after complaining. Where's my other wing? I just have to match the energy of that one. And did I scale it down? I must have. Do I have perspective on? No? Good. I'm going to lay a few more feathers down over as a seam, kind of like to kind of paper over where the wing and the body meet. So I'm going to have to create a few more extra feathers and just drop those on top. But it's still feeling pretty good to me right now. I like the the way it seems to be fitting together. And I stream Tuesdays and Thursdays on Twitch and YouTube. I still want to get this arm to bend up a little. See if I can get this one to bend up a bit more. I just don't want him to be symmetrical. Oops. That many mistakes in a row, I have to drink some coffee. And again, my name is Steve Conley. I'm a web cartoonist. You can read my webcomic, The Middle Age, at middleagecomic.com. I'll be posting an update version of what this looks like when the stream is all done over on my Discord. And if you want to support me, we have Patreon. Man, maybe I could... I'm going to take the whole figure and tip it back. That wing base I'm going to move out of the way. Those bonus tail feathers. Body. I can't believe I got this whole thing down to just a few elements at the moment. This is coming along. He looks ridiculous. I still have to create new legs, new feet, and I have to put a lot of debris around the base so that the legs just don't snap when someone tries to print this thing out, or when I get the figure made, that it's so spindly that we run into a problem. Let's save. We haven't done that in a little while. And I think I'm going to have to scale him down just a little bit. I got to bring in a copy of the Melvin, at least Melvin or Quimp or one of the other figures so that we can see how it looks in context next to the other characters. I kind of want to scale the body down just a little bit. Hide these legs, these chicken legs. We don't need those at the moment. The idea will be to get him low on the base. Again, so low that when I put flowers and things all over the tree trunk, that it'll let us create a nice bit of stability. Okay, use the drag tool. I'm trying to move one of these legs down a little bit. Oh. Move tool? Oh, symmetry's on. That's my problem. Let's create a leg. Now I'm not going to put a knee in it like I had in that kind of rough start. So we'll do simple path with a soft corner. It's still going to be cartoonishly thick. In the comic, I draw them with very skinny legs, but I want the legs to be, again, they got to be stronger. About saving, James, You needed a little reminder about saving what you were working on? Increase the post subdivision. That'll smooth out the... Wait, no, that's not it. Increase the... That's it. Turn the reference drawing back on. I did give him a little bit of a knee bend there, didn't I? Let's stick with that, even if I'm going to soften the turn there. Yeah, I understand that. When was the last time I saved? I mean, I mentioned before that I don't mind crashing when it crashes because that gives me a chance to redo something, or, you know, sometimes it's like it's 80% of the way there, but it's done, so at least you write it off and you move on. But then when it crashes, you get a chance to make it 90% better instead of just, you know, make it 90% instead of 80. Okay. This whole figure would need to be shifted a bit. I think like the tree trunk. What I like about the tree trunk in the drawing is it's got more of a sway to it. I think I want to do that. I don't want to make the figure unbalanced. I don't want to make the model unbalanced, but I do want to give the tree some more life than that. Okay, big old brush. Let's see if they can do this. Did that move everything? Kind of did. Let me lower the power. See if that does it. I'll move those mushrooms to where someplace a little where they look a lot better than they currently do. I'm not super happy with them at the moment, but baby steps. Okay, how are we doing? So the whole thing could be moved over a little bit. The tree trunk and the mushrooms. And I can move that leg over, or that tree limb. I was trying to say limb, but it didn't come out like limb. Move. I love when the tree root, when the leg of the tree or one of the limbs of the tree is kind of like a ground limb, and it's there and it kind of moves along the ground, sort of like a root of a tree, but then the root gets a little bit of loft to it, like it was on top of something, or there was a rock in the way, or something was in the way, so it bends in a cool fashion. I love when it pops out like that, so I want to maintain that if I can. Don't want to mess around too much with the tree at the moment. When I see something that needs fixing. How we doing? Okay, we're doing good. We're doing great. We're doing great. 7 o'clock. 0 drop frames after 3 hours of streaming. I like seeing that. Our duck is coming along swimmingly. And our... Move that forward. Let's put a little more step in that. Okay, I like the leg there. I'm gonna move that. I'm gonna move his body to where I want it to be. I was gonna keep messing around with the legs position, but I'm gonna move the whole thing up. We kind of kept it on its symmetrical axis the entire time, and now we're at this point. I'm like, oh right, I can move everything. I'm still gonna have to do the collar, merge all that stuff together. This is ridiculous. Oh, thank you all for being here. What did I do with the right leg? You know what? Maybe I don't hate those legs so much. No, I don't like them either. I don't like them. They can go away. They can go away. Let's make a duck foot. Alright, I've looked at a lot of duck feet, but I'm just gonna carve it out of a sphere. Post subdivision, validate, trim tool. Son of a gun, let me move it back to the center of the universe and I'll turn everything else off. Wait, I need the gizmo tool. Where is it? Gizmo. Solo. Okay. With symmetry on, trim the trim tool. Symmetry on again. Didn't take the first time. Remesh and smooth. How we doing? Hope everyone's working on their fun project, whatever that is. I'm gonna turn the mesh way, the smoothing way up to smooth this thing out. Remesh it. I'm gonna remesh it down because I think the tighter the less resolution, the easier it'll be to smooth. trim this thing down. I'm going to go with the trim tool and the rectangle, turn off symmetry. Oh man, I want symmetry on for this part. So knowing that I was coming up on this part of the working on the feet, as I was going through a nearby little pond, there were a bunch of ducks, and one of them was just standing on one foot, like just its foot back up, like so I could see the back of its foot, like the underside of its foot, and it was just sitting there, standing there like a flamingo on one leg. And I'm like, I was like, oh, I hope it's not injured its foot, but it's a pretty good reference. Oh, that's awesome. I gotta know how to say this. I gotta make it like Akazuro or Akazuro 3D. Akazuro. Hopefully I'm saying that right. Akazuro 3D on Twitch says, I just checked out the webcomic. I approve. Oh, fantastic. Well, welcome. That's great. That's awesome. Well, welcome. I really appreciate it. I've been doing webcomics for a very long time, and I mentioned I take heart in that fact that most people don't know who I am or that my work exists, and so it's awesome that people could just stumble onto it. And there's like 280 episodes, with episode 281 appearing for Patreon people tomorrow, and then everyone else can see it on Monday. That's great. Okay. I'm not sure if I kind of want to chunk up the toes. I kind of don't want them to be points. I don't like points in the models. I want them to be squared off in some way. Trim tool. I just think I prefer everything in the model to be chunky and not pointy. Although that's just insisting on having a point. So I'm going to remesh it down to the point where it's just like not enough pixels to do anything. There we go. We'll bring it back up. I keep calling it pixels because I'm an amateur. 710. We're doing great. Turn solo off. We have a giant foot. Go to the front. Huh, it happened again. It's very interesting that symmetry was affecting it that way. I gotta make sure that I'm taking this back. I gotta make sure that that foot is flat on the top of the stump. So again, trying to build as much solidity as possible. Appreciate your support, James. Okay, this is the front. Who's gonna see this? I don't know. Let me hide the tree stump then for a moment. So I do like that I get to take liberties with the designs a bit. If I were hiring anybody else to make models of my characters, I'd be like, no, you can't mess my character up. That's not what his feet look like. And because it's me modeling it, it's like, you know, whatever works. Can I get the solo to work local? There we go. I didn't mean the solo, the symmetry to work locally. Yeah. Gotta hate that leg. Because it's a single weight tube, I need to have it taper. I just gotta. Can't live like that. You all deserve better than that. Tube, path. Start up high, go out, come back a little bit. Validate that, select that, look at it from the front. See how bad it is. It's not bad. It could be worse. Increase the subdivision. Wait, no, the topology. Again, it can't get too thin, but it's got to look at least something like our character. And I'm going to have to build in a ton of structure into this thing to make sure it can stand. That's ridiculous, and there's no way it would stand on that. So I need to absolutely anchor. I'm gonna have to have something directly under his butt, like a. I might as well just put a pillar in that goes into him, like it's a merry-go-round object, and then just decorate it and like cover it with feathers and flowers and assorted doodads to hide the fact that I've built in that structure. Mushrooms. Let's rotate this a bit. Can I tilt his tail feathers to the base for extra? I think I'm going to have to. I think I'm going to have to have that down. The idea was that they might go down to kind of act as like a little bit of a cape or a canopy in the rear. I'm also going to bring up the wood of the back of the stump, I think, as well. I kind of meet them halfway. I think the tail feathers probably should have been larger. Probably. You know, I think I'd be taking liberties with duck anatomy, but what else is new on this model? That'd be like complaining about the duck anatomy on this would be like, that's not the way a duck would wear a crown. Also, I've got a male duck quacking throughout the entire story, and as we've established, that's not what male ducks do. Okay, so we've got our... Let's grab our move tool. Let's turn symmetry on. Local. So that should go down the middle of the figure. So as I move one side, nope. Nope. I think to do this, I want to bring that out a bit. Yeah, I think that something like that's going to work. I still want the profile of the duck back to have that kind of like swoop. And I just really shouldn't care about that underside because it's going to be obscured. Okay. And I'm going to attach... Well, let's do that now. Let's just be... Let's make every person who ever tries to print this thing thankful by making a large pole. And I didn't make it complicated. I didn't do anything fancy with it. It's just simple because, and I don't care because no one's ever going to see it. Nobody is going to see this. That's not even how you spell it because I don't care. Because nobody's going to see how it's spelt either. All right. Move. Making a little room for his little duck foot to come poking out. What size are these minis? I cheat and call them heroic size because that's what the Hero Forge people and Reaper Miniatures call theirs. Technically, they're kind of 32-ish, 32 millimeter. But I did try to be legit with our Hero and Melvin's Eye line being around 28. The trouble is, Quimp is really stooped. His figure is almost like bent over. So if he stood up straight, he would be like 12 feet tall. So I did scale him down a skosh. So they'll fit fine on the table. The big problem was on a 1-inch base, he's just hanging over everything. So if someone put him on inside a map, and I hope that they do, because I'm making character sheets for these guys. If someone uses them in their adventure, he would be banging into everything. He couldn't fit through a 5-foot doorway. You know, that sort of thing. How big are the cowardly size minis? Oh, those are like 15 millimeter. There are people who do like war games and they've got like, you know, they have a realistically, even if they have a gigantic table, figures are still incredibly small. And but they're fielding hundreds of figures, you know. But for most Dungeons and Dragons games, the base, the squares that everybody's on are 1 inch. So a 10-foot room would be 10 inches by 10 inches. You know, a 10-foot square room would be 10 inches by 10 inches, and each 1 inch, it's marked off in a grid of 1 inches, a 1 inch grid. There's probably, I said that wrong 8 ways, but there's room on each one of those grid spots for a single figure. No, cowardly size isn't a thing, JRD, but I was trying to think of what the opposite of heroic is. A lot of people, hardcore people, like 28 millimeter. That's kind of like, if you are a legit, you know, if you want to make sure, the thing is, everybody wants to make sure that if you buy minis from one company and another company and another company, and you put them next to each other, that, you know, the kobolds aren't taller than the giants, as an extreme example. Or that one 6-foot tall hero next to another 6-foot tall hero, one doesn't look like he's 8.5 feet tall. I get that. But then what happens is people really want to paint them, and so they're getting larger and larger to make them easier to paint. And they also want them to have all these details, and so they're covered with little objects. And there's a company called Hero Forge, which has an online mechanism that lets you model your character in your web browser. You can choose a body type. You can choose all sorts of features of the character. Wings or a tail, or, you know, elven ears, all these various qualities. The weapons, the garb, and then the figure, you can rotate they've got like a skeletal system, so you can rotate the arm, you can rotate the hand. They've got various hands and different things, and in the environment you can change things. And I think there's even a built-in painting element to it too. And then you pay to either download the printable STL file if you've got a 3D printer, or they'll print you an unpainted one and mail it to you, or they'll print you a painted one, and it's kind of done. I originally played around with, can I make my own characters in their system, and I just couldn't do it. You know, my characters are just too, you know, they're too cartoony. They're drawn like a doofus drew them. So, I mean, I'm really impressed with their system. I'm terribly impressed with their system, but it wasn't something I could use to recreate my silly characters. And their size is 35 millimeters. So very, very large by comparison. And that's roughly where my characters are going to be. The vendor I'm working with is going to send me samples. And as soon as I get those, I will definitely share them with everybody. These ones I have here were printed by a 3D printer who has a Simon's Magic Shoppe, SHOPPE. They do resin printing, and they do a great job. And the packaging material is amazing. The characters are in a little foam cradle with all bits of foam to support them to keep. I mean, my models have tons of stuff hanging off of them. Arrows are sticking out of them. There's an axe in his back. Craziness. And so the figures people get from me will require some assembly. But 3D printed ones had them all sticking out, and they arrived in one piece because they did such a great job of packing it. Okay, where were we? The foot and the leg. Duplicate. Flip object. Oops. We want to have a global. Flip object. Flip object. Okay, we'll grab our gizmo tool. Rotate the leg. Rotate the leg. But I will hope to have them. I'll be at the Heroes Con in Charlotte, North Carolina in June. And JRD, I know you'll be there as well. I will have I'll likely have a set of these there for you to see. And I think I'm going to have larger prints available. I want to have these on the table just so people can see them from a distance and come over, because I had them at the last convention I did. They're so small that people did see them from a distance, but having something larger, I think, is going to make it a lot easier for people to see it. Like, so I'm going to get like some large D20s as well, just so from a distance people can see, oh, fantasy gaming adjacent content. Kazero3D says on Twitch, the issue with a lot of modular creation tools is they often lack character, or they can only get about 80 to 90% of the design right. Makes knowing 3D very handy for simple modifications at least. Oh, that's such a good point. That's such a good point. I would imagine getting the STL from them and bringing it into a program like Nomad or yeah, what was the other one we were talking about just a minute ago? The idea that you can work on it and make all the changes you want. I think I even saw somebody who has a Patreon and they just make like accessories. So if people want to modify their character, they can. All right. I still want his figure to be seen. So I want this back leg to still flare out a bit, but come back. It's kind of a nod to the way there's a cartoonist named Carl Barks who did a lot of Donald Duck and Scrooge McDuck comics. And I really liked the fun way that he drew the way legs bend sometimes in his cartoon characters. I think I might have to recreate, I have to create a new leg. I think I need to make this bend more to have the effect I want. I don't know if I can actually bend this to do it. I feel like that foot came loose at some point. I'm going to delete these and bring over a new figure. Bring over a new foot. Do autosave, have a little coffee. The trouble with doing a Kickstarter, I'm finding, is that a lot of people are used to like a very cheap price for 3D printed figures, or not 3D printed, but you know, minis. Like if you go into, I went to a gaming store and there was a pack of Reaper minis, and I think they were like $3 for this figure, and I'm afraid my figure is going to be like $20, 15 to $20 for one figure. It's for the main figure just because he's so big, but the other set is going to be like $40 for the 4 figures. And I did look at other things like Matt Colville's stuff on MCDM's website and their shop, and they, you know, their figures. What I do like about Colville's pricing is that you can tell that the price is based on the size of the figure, because each figure's got a different price. So I don't think it's based on, so it's clearly based on the complexity. I hate that the price is going to be what it is, but I think people are going to be like, oh, what this, you know, as long as I'm up front and share the process and all that stuff, I think everyone's going to be like, okay. I'm trying, again, I think everybody knows too that I'm trying to make everything affordable. I still want everybody in the world to be able to read my comic and enjoy all the stuff, and I never want to paywall this stuff. I hate that it has to be. I wish I could just work on this stuff and give it away. I grew up with very little, and I hate that people with less even get less of my stuff. That's not cool. He says, rambling. Okay, so if I have that there, that's not terrible. No, I gotta... Let me see my drawing again. Can I bend that back a bit more? Symmetry, you vex me yet again. Okay, let's create another leg. Tube, path, click, click, click. Start that over again. Path. I'm going to do 3 points. Then I'm going to get it lined up properly in space. And then once it's properly in space, we'll worry about the thickness and the angle and tightening up the other stuff. I find putting these extra points in there let me curve. I mean, I don't want to. I don't want to give them calf muscles. You know what I mean? I will increase the post subdivision. That cleans up the smoothness of the outside. And I also know that there's a sweet spot with Kickstarter. I think you and I were talking about this, JRD. Like a $25 price tag on Kickstarter is just like I really wanted the 4 characters for $25. To me, that would have been perfect because I know $25 is the thing that everyone likes on Kickstarter. You know, so it would have been I think the absolute best of both worlds. I just can't get it to work. I mean, it was almost going to be losing money at one point. You know, thankfully, as the figures came down in size, that adjusted, that helped things. Oh, no, heavens. But at some point, it just wasn't working. Scale it down a bit. I wish I could lose weight like that. Just mush things into place and they'd stay. I hear you. All right, I'm going to bend this foot in the back. Let me turn solo on. Oops, what? Wrong tool. Drag. Okay, so I'm going to just increase the division on that leg just so it's nice and smooth. We validate. Now with this tree trunk, I'm going to drag it up so that it just gets underneath, so it touches that foot. So the foot will be anchored. Man, how about that? That's ridiculous and very close to what we were going for. Okay. This wing. Can I rotate it some more? Maybe make it a little larger. Let's be cowardly and we'll duplicate it. Turn off the original one and save and drink coffee. And James, you save too. Everybody save what they're working on. But I'm not the boss of you. You fly without a net. You don't save. Don't let me tell you what to do. Okay, let's see if this will work. If I move the wing and look at it flat, and I move it, and I don't move it forward or back, but I move it just up. Can I do that? Can I take the move tool? It's like, the thing is, I just don't like what it does with the tip of the wing, how it's just this kind of, it drags behind. It's the worst part. It's what I love, that the wing currently fights all that. Fights that gravity that's pulling on it. I also am terrified that the more I move it, the thinner it gets, and the more a 3D printer, a guy who's got to print this thing, is just going to come out from the shadows and punch me in the face. I really wanted it to be chunky. I thought I was doing that, but along the way I kept tweaking and tweaking and tweaking it. And every step along the way it got thinner and thinner and thinner. So I'm happy that that pedestal thing is in there. I'm gonna decorate the heck out of it and try to mitigate it. It doesn't have to be quite that chunky. I mean, I know I'm doing everybody a favor by it being there. So, but I can, even that amount of stability will be good, I think. And I still will. I'm still gonna, once I wrap it with like flowers and all sorts of other stuff, a stray feather, I think it'll look good. Speaking of that, let's make a stray feather. Let's just, a palette cleanser. We will hide the reference image. We will create a sphere. And so this is kind of how I created every bit of the wing, every bit of the feathers. So if you're joining me now or catching this later on, here's how I make feathers. Or if I want to slice this part out and show people how to do that, let's do that. Let's start from the top. Let's record a little bit here. Hey everybody, I'm Steve Conley. I'm a web cartoonist and have been for a very, very long time. I'm currently making a 3D model of this character, Waddlebottom, the Lord of all Ducks. Look at that majesty. His wings and his body are very complicated because they're covered with lots and lots of feathers. I'm going to show you how I made one of those feathers right now. And so we're going to start with the sphere we've created. How easy is that? We just create a sphere. You can also then increase the radius to increase the size of it, or the post subdivision to increase the smoothness of it. So I'm going to do that. And now, grabbing the gizmo tool, I'm going to validate it. That turns it from being a primitive into an actual object that we can edit and manipulate. So if you want to do, I don't know, draw on it, or dig into it, or crease it, you could. But we're not going to do that. We're actually just using this as a mold upon which we're going to make our feather. I'm going to show you how we do that by making a feather that's going to just sit in the environment. It's going to be a loose feather that's just there looking awesome. So we take the selection mask tool. It's important that we click this particular button that says front facing vertex only. We click that because if we don't, it'll draw through the object. We don't want to do that. We just want to work on one side of it. We're using this sphere because we want to adopt this curvature of the sphere, and so that's why we're starting with a sphere. So I'm just going to remesh it to give us more pixels to play with. I'm going to turn symmetry on as well. Actually, make sure the symmetry is local and not global. Global symmetry means everything's mirrored from the center of the universe that you're working in, and local means the object you're working on. So with symmetry on and the lasso tool, it didn't work because I didn't have symmetry selected. Perfect. And we've created a fish. Okay, so with our basic shape, we want to make sure it's all connected. We can also use the unmasking tool, and I will, to clean it up and to thin out the stem of the feather. It's fairly chunky because it's a very large sphere and it's got a large well, the pixels are large. It's a large thing. Anyway, now we're going to do is go into, with the select mask tool selected, we're going to go into the select mask settings and adjusting the shell thickness and hit extract. And that, from the object we've created, extrudes a shape. Now, given how small this feather will be, I want this to be a much thicker thing. Because again, these models are all meant for turning into miniatures, like D&D size miniatures, which are about this big. Very small. So I want to make sure the pieces are very big and very chunky, blocky, so that when printed, they will survive the printing process. So nice and big. Oh, that's chunky. Perfect. So we can hide our sphere. And this is our feather. I'm going to go in there and remesh it. And then using the smooth tool, I'm just going to clean up the sides. Now I think that's the little end of the feather here, that stem of the feather. I can thicken that up a bit. It's looking a little too wispy. So I'm just going to add some clay to it. Chunk it up. I'm going to remesh it again. It looks like it's kind of falling apart on me. Every time I have any problems with a particular object, like I'm trying to smooth it and it's not smoothing, or you're trying to add material to it and it's breaking, just remesh it. It just means you've basically pushed that portion of the object about as far as you can. And now I'm going to smooth that out. I think my smooth brush was on set to very high, so it was degrading the object very quickly. Cool. Now, I mostly want this side of the feather to be seen, so I'm going to take the clay tool with a thin brush, just draw some light pattern on it, just Just a little something. Make it feathery-ish, feather adjacent. And then take a big old brush with a smoothing tool and just soften it a little bit. I'm going to do it one more time. That way, the first one smoothed it out, put it in there, and the next one just kind of adds a little bit of height. Again, big old brush, smooth. I'm going to go do the other side as well. Just that way we can use this model a couple places if we want. I'm not sure if we will, because it is, again, it's so easy to make these things that I'm loath to replicate them. If it's going to be something I'm going to just clone and clone and clone, it's either going to be something that's going to be hundreds of them, and I don't want to do that, and I don't want to go make hundreds of them, or it's so complicated that it's like, oh, let's never make one of those again. Okay, so there's that. Now, with the smooth tool, now with the trim tool, and again, just making sure that you don't have symmetry selected. I'm just going to cut out a few feathery notches. And then with the crease tool, let's add a couple more. I didn't do this with the feathers on the duck himself. Oh, this is a other good learning point. If you're going to drag, you notice at the very first point when I'm using this crease tool, the very first place where your pen point goes down, it immediately gets like you've dug into it with a stylus and then drags the line out. To mitigate that, you go into your pen controls and this fall off section, choose custom, and the idea is a low flat table. And that way when you draw, it doesn't automatically start with a big gouge and then this way it's a much smoother crease that you're placing into the object. Put a couple of these lines that kind of lead into the carves we've done. I'm going to remesh it one more time. And you will occasionally see the spider webbing. We talked about this before when I was working on the more complex duck model. Oh, and by the way, the crease tool, you can always subtract, you can turn it to its opposite effect. And instead of creating a crease, you can create a positive, a little peak. And I can use that to add some tiny little cliffs to the shape. And that'll give it more of a feathery look as well. And this is going to be very small, but still, I like putting in the detail even if it gets lost along the way. At one point it was there. So when you are remeshing things, occasionally the program chokes a bit. And it's like, what do you want me to do? And it will create this kind of webbing that's sort of sitting between there. And there's a couple ways of dealing with it. My favorite way, I just stumbled on today and through today's stream, and I stream Tuesdays and Thursdays on Twitch and YouTube, you can separate the object. And what that does is you'll have your original one, and then all these other little pieces are those floating bits and extra bits of webbing. So you can select those, simple merge them, and delete them, and they're gone. Previously I was trying to mush them into the object and it wasn't working. And so we have this feather, which I can scale down to a way more reasonable feathery size. And where could we put this? I don't know if this is exactly where this thing will end up. I really want to obscure some of the structure I'm building under the duck, and so the feather will probably appear someplace else as well. Let me do this. Let me move it up here. Because that was part of what we were talking about. So something like that. I'm thinking about adding those throughout the model. Every time I draw this character in the comic, when they're doing something active, there's feathers going everywhere, and I want to include those. So that's how I add. That's how you create a feather in Nomad Sculpt. This will be a standalone graphic that was taken out of context from my stream, which is Tuesdays and Thursdays on YouTube and Twitch, and I'm going to upload this separately. So thanks for watching. And I'm going to cut that piece out, and we'll see. Make that a standalone graphic on YouTube. Because I've been looking, that whole idea of taking the object and using masks as a way of creating the bends and the folds, and especially for things like capes and hair, I haven't seen anyone do that, or at least certainly not talk about it for Nomad Sculpt. And it's, well, I don't know, these models wouldn't be possible without that. Okay, so I like that feather. I still want to put flowers and stuff under him. So I think that's mostly going to fill up this environment. That feather is a nice touch, but I think that's just going to sit on the ground somewhere. And I do have to add feathers to his figure. Oh boy, sometimes you just move something in space in this thing and it just shoots off. But I still want to add a few feathers kind of to suture the shoulder and the rest of the wing. I think it just needs like 3 or 4 that I can tuck in and have come out and kind of marry those two sections together a bit better. I'll do that on both sides. But I suspect that's what we'll be doing on Tuesday. I'm going to add a few more. I think we're going to add some flowers. So anyone wants to learn how to make foliage, like I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to do that, but we'll figure it out together. I also want to add a scroll because, again, in the story he has a map that he shares with our hero, and it's a key part of the story. No spoilers, because I know we have new readers. But overall, let me hide the tube. Oh, not the tube. It's wing, foot. Let me merge those together. Simple merge. Simple merge. Let's hide our nobody's going to see this. Oh yeah, LJ. I think I gave you a shout out earlier today when I was talking about how I'm looking to add that to the environment. Okay, let's one last major thing we can do. I think this is key. What is that mesh? Oh, that's the feather. Let's name that. Wingtip. That sphere we don't need. Wingtip 2 we can discard. Oh, hopefully we can discard it. Crown, that's everything. Let me not move the feet because I went through all the trouble of anchoring them to the bottom of the tree. Let's try this first. Better. Right? Better. The more of an angle, the more dynamic, the less rigid and straight, the better the whole thing. It is ridiculous. I'm so happy with it. It's super absurd. I don't... I don't know what value this has in anyone's life, except hopefully it will make them smile a little bit. Hopefully that's enough. It feels like it might be enough. Okay, so we're going to add the thing that needs to be, what needs to be added underneath him. A bunch of feathers and flowers and assorted doodads. And I think we're good. Okay, we're coming up on 8 o'clock. We're going to say goodbye to our lovely YouTube people. Twitch folks, please hang out a moment. Let's go raid somebody. YouTubers, I will see you on Tuesday. Hit the follow, hit the subscribe, hit the bell, light the candle, carve the rune into your keyboard with whatever sharp implement you have, preferably a bone or something. And if there's a bonus stream, you'll be alerted. Thanks, JRD. I really appreciate it. And Twitch folks, hang out a moment. Let's go see if we can raid somebody. We'll go spread the love.